Behind me we had the Shrewsbury Flaxmill Maltings, nearly 225 years old, built of brick and iron as we know to make it fireproof. But who built it? What was it for? What did it do? And who worked here? Well, the answer to the first question is it was built by Thomas and Benjamin Benyon, who were wool merchants from Shrewsbury, and they teamed up with John Marshall, who was an owner of some flax mills in Leeds, and he developed a series of machines to process flax and spin it into yarn and thread, which was then later used for weaving into linen and canvas and making rope. Well, the Benyon brothers were facing hard times really. The wool trade was in decline and they really needed something in their own town that they could work on and develop. So this flax mill provided the obvious opportunity for them. They were able to use steam engines because they could get coal brought in by the canal, which actually had recently been dug and could come right in front of the factory, the site where the factory was going to be built. Better still, they had a ready-made workforce in Shrewsbury. It started off as about 400, then rose to 600, and later in the 1830s to 800 before it then went down as mechanisation increased. And the majority of this workforce were women and children, cheaper than men, and they had nimble fingers, and they could actually mend the threads and sort out the machines very efficiently. And of course shifts were long, so all were in factories in those days, and conditions were pretty unhealthy. To start with, they were doing dry spinning, bad for the lungs because lots of dust. Later on they were doing wet spinning, equally bad for the lungs because it was so humid. Life expectancy was low. So the children, where did they come from? They weren't just local children. Oh no, they came from workhouses from all over the country. The people who ran the workhouses were absolutely delighted when factory owners and industrialists came to them and said, "Can we have 30 children please?" Because those people, the factory owners, would pay the workhouse. So not only did they get rid of the children who were their responsibility, but they earned a bit of money on the side as well. Well, the conditions were pretty cruel. Overseers were very intent on making sure that those 15-hour shifts were worked without children falling to sleep, and punishments were common, but a series of factory acts and inspection regimes actually helped improve conditions. It was still pretty hard work though, and even by the 1880s, when the factory finally closed, those children were working pretty hard, certainly at least 50% of the time, although they were allowed to go to school. Well, after the factory closed, it was empty for about 10 years, but an opportunity was spotted by William Jones, who was a maltster. He owned a maltings over on the other side, in Bellevue, on the other side of Shrewsbury, and he saw all these floors and he thought, yes, we could use those, we could convert this building, and that's just what he did. Now, the process of maltings involves taking barley, wetting it, spreading it, letting it germinate, and then drying it. And that turns the starch in the barley into sugar, which then makes it suitable for brewing. And that's just what William Jones set about doing. And in order to achieve this change, he had to transform the building. He had to lower the floor, smooth out the floors, he built a kiln, he put in water tanks, but most significantly of all, for the look of the building, he had to block up the windows. Well, he blocked up 2/3 of the windows and reduced the final third of the windows into a much smaller size to control the air temperature and also the light. Well, he finished his conversion work 1897, just in time for Queen Victoria's Diamond Jubilee, and he inserted a coronet up on one of the lifting towers. Well, the maltings went on right the way through till 1986-87, interrupted just for a short time during the two world wars when the building was used as an army training barracks, and it was known, probably not affectionately by the soldiers, as the Rat Hotel. So there we have it. We have a building that had 90 years as a flax mill, a little gap, 90 years then as a maltings, and then of course the future holds 90 years plus, we hope, following the restoration that's going on now.